So in this video, we will learn how to factor trinomials. This kind of factoring will be categorized in two groups. One of them is very simple. I'll talk about that one, and another one is a little bit more complicated. So let's just go forward. You remember that factoring is the opposite of multiplication, correct? If I go ahead and multiply these two binomials, x plus 2 times x plus 3, if you recall from the previous videos, you can follow them on polynomials. We have to do 4 sets of multiplications. X times x is x2, x times 3 is 3x, 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 3 is a 6. We will see some like terms, so I have to rewrite and add the like terms, right? Let's do one more. Would you do this one for me? X plus 5 times x plus 8. Again, we're going to get x2 plus 8x plus 5x plus 40. And the like terms there, x2 plus 13x plus 40. The result of the multiplication of two binomials, and the very basic ones, is a trinomial which looks like this. They start with x2, they have an element of x with a coefficient, and they have a constant at the end. Now, let's try to find a relationship between these numbers. So, in the first one, I have x plus 2, x plus 3, and the answer is x2 plus 5x plus 6. What's the relationship between 5 and 2 and 3? Yep, 2 plus 3 is 5. And what's the relationship between 2 and 3 and 6? 2 times 3 is 6, correct? Let's check it for this one. 5 plus 8, 13. 5 times 8, 40. So you know what? If they gave us this next time and they wanted us to multiply, we can memorize, also it's a good thing to memorize, that it's going to look like an x times x is an x2. Add 5 and 7, which is 12, plus 12x, and multiply them. Sometimes when we ask you to multiply something, to memorize something, it is like we're telling you to memorize something very irrelevant and something that does not make sense, right? But sometimes when you want to memorize this, is that, oh, when I was multiplying, the first 2 would give me the x2, and the very last sentence is going to be their multiplication, the multiplication of the numbers, right? So we don't really have to memorize them, but we have to keep them in mind. And in the middle, as you can see, you would multiply a 5x and an 8x. They give us like terms, so that's like a 5 plus 8x, right? 13x. So that's why the middle term is adding them. In this example, if you're multiplying x plus 3 and x minus 5, the first term is x2, the last term is negative 15 because you multiplied. In the middle, add the 3 and negative 5. What is 3 negative 5? Negative 2. It's going to be negative 2x. Let's do another one. X plus 4 times x minus 10. X and x, x2. X and negative 10 and x and 4 and x is a plus 4 negative 10. What's the answer there? Negative 6. So negative 6x. And for the last term, just multiply them. Negative 40. Again, x minus 10 times x minus 8. X and x2, and negative 10, negative 8 is negative 18, negative 18x, and negative 10 times negative 8 is actually plus 80. Another one. X minus 7 times x plus 2. X times x is x2, minus 7 plus 2 is negative 5, so negative 5x, and negative 7 times 2 is negative 14, right? So now, for factoring, we have to do the opposite. They will give us this part, and they ask us to write down the bracket. So what we have to keep in mind is that any of these that they give us, we have to break them down into two brackets with the format of x plus or x plus, right? So first we'll look to recognize if we have a general trinomial term, a basic general trinomial, which starts with an x2. Then we say, okay, that gives us two brackets with x and x, and all I need to do is I need to find the two numbers. The best way is to start with the latter number and figure out what two numbers could possibly be there. What times what would give us a 6? 1 times 6, right? And then 2 times 3, right? And there's no other options. So first break it down based on the two numbers who would multiply to give us that. Then we need to pick a set which would, if we add or subtract them, give us that 5, right? So let's go with additions. 1 plus 6 is 7. 2 plus 3 is 5. So you are going to pick this set because plus 2 plus 3 is going to give us a plus 5. So we're going to go x plus 2, x plus 3. Let's do one more example. If I have x2 plus 12x plus 35, first we check and we say that this is the basic general trinomial term. So it is going to factor into two brackets who would start with x and x. Then we go ahead and we break down our 35. What is 35? 1 times 35, 2 is not going into it, 3 doesn't, 4 doesn't, 5 goes in 7. Next number is again 7 and 5. I don't have to repeat it. And that's about it, right? 35 is just even 1 times 35 or just 5 times 7. Between these two pairs, which one would give me a 12? How can I construct a 12? Plus 5 plus 7. So we'll just go ahead and put a plus 5 up there and a plus 7 up there. Let's do one more example. x2 minus 5x minus 14. Again, it is general trinomial term, so I open the brackets x and x, and I go ahead and work with 14. 14 is 1 and 14, 2 and 7, and that's about it, right? Now, how can I make negative 5? How can I multiply them to have negative 14? If that's negative 14, I need to know that one of them needs to be positive, one of them is negative. So then I start with different combinations, and I see that if I have a positive 2 and a negative 7, that gives me a negative 5. And positive 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. So then I understand that one is going to be x plus 2, one was going to be x minus 5. Let's do one more example. If I have x2 minus 6x minus 40. It's general trinomials. So I open it like this, and let's look at 40. 40 has too many options. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. That's it, right? And then it reads. So you don't have to list all of them. You list a bunch of them, and then you will try to construct something from that, right? First of all, since that's negative 40, one is positive, one is negative. And we have to construct a negative 6 for that. Negative 6. Well, how do I make that negative 6 from this? Negative 6. How about that? Plus 4, negative 10 gives me a negative 6. That's why it's going to be an x plus 4, x minus 6. How about we do x minus 10. And you can always check back, multiply back to check and make sure that that works. How about we do this? x2 minus 7x. Give me one sec. Plus 10. Again, x and x.